I'm Tami McCarthy.
And I'm Becki Fleischer.
We're two soul sisters on the front lines of growth and transformation, getting real about it all.
You know, sometimes we're totally in our woo-woo groove, walking on light.
Yep. And other times, we lose our footing and end up tripping over those very same rays of sunshine. That's woo-woo in the real world. On this show, we're giving you an inside look at all the healing practices and mindfulness that we use and how we integrate them into our lives.
Yep, we're talking to interesting people who can help us along the way as we look at some of the woo and wild things that make us go,
We hope that you'll join us, living woo-woo in the real world. Well, welcome to Woo Woo in the Real World.
yeah.
And today's a special Wednesday. It's like doubly special.
It is.
Well, triply, really. But it's International Women's Day. And we have a special guest in the house today.
We do.
A big welcome to Kristin Raniola.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to be here in your beautiful studio.
Yeah.
Where you perform all of your services, your Reiki services.
Glad that you made it in.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
So, okay, we're going to get right down to it. We are talking today about Reiki, which is a Japanese healing modality or technique. I think it was introduced, in the 1900s? And we're just going to jump right in. You know, it's interesting because if anybody who knows me, you know I'm an energy person, right? And so I launched a holistic wellness company in 2016 that included a kit that would just get mailed out to people, a meditation retreat in a box, right? And so that's what led to this collective that I opened in Pound Ridge, where healing modalities were a big part of what I did.
Right.
So, and that's how we met.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In 2018, when I opened that space and I was offering Reiki services there, it was
Right, you were.
Yeah, and it was so interesting to me that nobody knew what Reiki was. Now, I wouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people would come through because, you know, we would have it every Saturday and then by special appointment. And people would be like, what's happening over there? And how do I get involved, right? So it was so interesting. And then, you know, post-pandemic, obviously things changed. But I'm so glad that you're offering it here. And I want you to just tell people who don't know, what is Reiki?
Oh boy,
Let's just start there, and then we can talk about the healing benefits, right? I mean, in a previous episode, I think I talked about this amazing Reiki healing session that I had in Chicago, because I've used it for many years for pain management, you know?
Yep.
But so many other, it's used in hospitals and for pain and for stress reduction and anxiety
it is slowly
relieving.
making its way into the mainstream. For sure.
Yeah. So
ironically,
school us.
Yes,
all things Reiki.
I shall school you. So, as mainstream as it's becoming, with it, as you mentioned, it's provided in hospitals now. And prior to the pandemic, I was at Stanford Hospital every Friday in oncology and post-op. It's very helpful for pain, which sounds like you are already aware of. When you explain it, it is very woo-woo.
It is very woo-woo. It's one of the most woo-woo things.
It is.
Yeah.
Because what we are doing as Reiki practitioners is channeling divine energy. So that's a lot right there.
Yeah.
Right. Through your hands. Through my hands. And sometimes it can be on touch on the person as well as not, right?
Right. So a lot of, I think the standard practice is hands-on. It's called hands-on healing. I tend to hover. Our first template is right about here, and I think that's just why I get a better read when I hover. But if we just say it on paper, I heal people by hovering my hands over their bodies, it sounds super, you can lose a lot of people right away.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but as energy people, right?
Yes.
So I am a self-declared energy person.
Yes.
I know you are.
Yes.
Right? And we're talking to one, which is great.
Yes.
So just to kind of drill down a little bit on this idea, right? And what it does is, like so many things that we want to detox from our bodies, from our physical bodies, right? Energy can get stuck in places.
Correct.
Right? And it gets clogged up and it can cause physical ailments, right? It can cause emotional distress, the stress and anxiety. Fatigue.
So a bunch of things happen. You can have stagnant energy, which is a buildup like you're talking about. A full block isn't really a thing, but you can get very, very stagnant. Another, but totally different problem, I would say, is depletion. So very often, say anxiety, right? Anxiety typically is not a block as much as it is that you are not grounded. So the majority of your energy is up here, and that gets very uncomfortable very, very quickly. That's why you start feeling heart palpitations and the running of your mind. And so it's perfectly good energy, but it's in the wrong place.
Right.
So people do tend to think of blocks, right? Or I have a block, release. A lot of times it's more about integration and movement.
Yeah.
A huge part of knowing that you're actually channeling divine energy is the art of detachment.
Right.
So, which is a daily practice.
Yes.
I mean, this is a way of life.
Yeah.
It's a way of living. And if you don't know how to detach, then you should not be placing hands over anybody.
Right, exactly.
So that's a very big piece of it.
Yeah, no, protecting your own energy is key to this whole
and
thing.
the other person's, right? Because we can, you can have the best of intentions, but if you have attached to their pain,
Right.
you are depleting yourself because you are now using your own energy.
Right.
And you are giving them more pain.
Yeah.
So this is not helpful.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so there's, it's a true art form and something that just the difference between using your own energy and actually channeling divine energy. It's a very subtle tweak.
Yes. Yep.
But as practitioners, we need to be very aware of it so that if we do feel ourselves, as you can imagine, most of my clients are women. I do have some males, but at the moment it's still predominantly females, and so a lot of those problems I can relate to, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's coming in. And so it's very important to have this ability to detach and understand that somebody else's journey is not my own.
Yeah.
And to channel divine energy versus use my own, right?
Yeah.
It's not, I am going to fix this person.
Yeah, no.
It is God's will be done.
Yes,
You know?
exactly. Have you ever had a Reiki session?
So I've done Reiki in small bites with you at one of the Soulful Socials.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then we did a full moon ceremony where we had the mini Reiki sessions as well. But I've never done a full-on session. So for me, I might be on the other end of the Reiki understanding continuum.
Yes.
I'm not as familiar with it as you are. So I was so looking forward to this conversation because for me, kind of coming from the outside looking in, how would someone know that a Reiki session would benefit them? I think is maybe the first step for people to understand, like, how do I know that Reiki's even for me?
That's a great question. And really, it covers such a broad spectrum. I mean, anything from migraine headaches. A lot of people come to see me because they have pain, but according to their doctor, there's nothing wrong. There's no reason to not receive it. It works, whether you're pregnant, whether you're in chemotherapy, whether you're on medications. It would be more about, does it call to you? Is it speaking to you? Is it something that you think you're comfortable with? Because it's a tricky question, because it's not about, oh no, we don't cover that. Like, you have IBS, I don't do IBS.
Right. Is it just for physical pain or physical feelings in your body, or
no?
Is it for people going through emotional
distress?
Okay.
I would say the majority of my cases is emotional distress, and I don't want to say it makes me happy, but I'm glad when people come in when it's at the emotional distress level, because if we don't deal with that, emotion is a frequency, and those are the frequencies that get stored in our body if we don't deal with them and release them. So when people come to me, once it's manifested into a physical issue, it gets a bit more tricky to treat. It's treatable, it's just going to take a little bit longer. Yeah.
So when someone comes to you, how does your intake session look? Do they tell you what's going on?
Yes.
Do you just kind of intuitively know what's going on? Do you feel things they don't know what's going on? Like, how does that all play out?
It's a whole big mix. So my intake sessions typically take anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours, and sometimes they take even longer.
Wow, that's pretty thorough.
Yes, the reason for that is I sit down for a good half hour, and here's where it gets super woo-woo again, because during those conversations, I'm clairvoyant and I've spoken to my guides since I was a very young girl, and this is truly their practice, and they step in and start guiding the conversation. So sometimes people come in thinking that the problem, the core issue is one thing, and it ends up being something entirely different. And they I'm not the person who you sit in front of me and I say, oh, I know what it is. It's a process, it's a guided, they start talking and my guides will say, ask more about that, ask more about that, go to their childhood, go to this, they in my own life personally and with my clients, they like the person to talk it out. They like them to come to their own conclusion together, right? Versus me just say, oh, they're telling me that it's this, your mom wounded you when you were young, that's it. They like them to talk through it.
Which makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, because, it's empowering. Right?
Exactly.
Because you're coming to your own. I'm not telling you, and I don't believe in telling somebody what their wound is. I believe in people telling me what their wounds are. And I think that that's a very important part of the process.
Sure, like tapping into that intuitive inner knowledge and inner wisdom.
Yes, I feel that really if I have a job, it's to reintroduce you back to yourself and your own power. And we all intuitively know these things, and we all intuitively have this alignment, this energy is free to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's this thing called life, right?
Right.
Which knocks us off our alignment, knocks us off our path, knocks us off our course, right? And a lot of times, so many people, but particularly women, I mean, we talk about this all the time, we just shoulder so much, right?
Yeah.
So what we're feeling, what we're going through, on any given day just gets suppressed, or I'll deal with that another time. And then what happens is, the body goes, hey,
Full
time
stop.
out. You need to listen to me now, right?
Yes.
And to your point, it's like, yes, we want to get back to ourselves, but sometimes people are so disassociated, or so their nervous system is so dysregulated that they don't know where to begin. Which is why I love Reiki, because it's such a beautiful modality where not a lot is required of people other than to just be open and receive it. And it's beautiful.
And it's subtle.
Yes.
It's subtle. It's not, a lot of times for the first 2 sessions, the only goal is just to get that person good and grounded so that they feel safe to release.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people come in and they say, get it out of me. And it's like, whoa, we're not ready for that yet because you suppressed it because it didn't feel so good. And until we feel good and safe,
right,
we're not going to release anything. We're just going to get nice and know your power and know your strength, and then we'll
and it's just so fun. Fun. I think it's fun, right? Like the more you get your own energy clear, the more you are clear about your own energy.
Yeah,
100%. And like today, for example, like we talked about, like the full moon and today, and just all this stuff is just, it's a very active time period right now, and stuff is really moving and shifting. And today, even this morning, after I got out of the shower, it's like the simple things. Like I go to reach for the moisturizer pump thing.
Right.
And I feel like I'm just going and picking it up and ready to go. And that thing just like flew out of my hand. And I'm just like, okay, girl, just like ground yourself. You know, you don't need to attack the moisturizer.
Right.
But like multiple things were happening like that, where
That's
I
so
was just
funny.
like a bit too amped up, you know?
And you know what? We were talking about this at the moon ceremony last night about the collective energy right now is not giving us gentle nudges. It's like a full shove.
Yeah.
Full
It's
shove.
like, let's do this. Let's go.
Yes.
And back to sort of normalizing it, right? So your first response to it flying out of your hand was, girl, let me grab it.
Yes.
Just grab
Well,
it.
this Tammy, right?
Yeah.
The evolved, more conscious Tammy.
That's what they say. You know that you're like making progress on the path when you have a
That's
different
the first place you go.
When you have a different reaction.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For myself, right? Whenever I'm feeling, it's like woof. It's like, girl,
Yeah.
to the ground. Like,
Yes.
let's just get this down. And so it doesn't have to be so woo woo. It
Right.
really doesn't have
Right.
to be. It's just like a daily thing. Like no one knows when I'm sending my energy to the ground. I've probably done it 50 times since you've been in the room, but I'm doing it. You know, it's just a part of who I am. I'm in a part of my energy self-care.
Right.
And the more aware we are of it, I think life gets a lot easier. Because otherwise, when the cream goes flying, you get pissed and everything's, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then that's the kind of stuff that happens for the rest of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas you can kind of stop it
Yes.
if you just like, okay.
Yeah.
But I like how you just said, you know, that's where it doesn't seem so woo-woo because, you know, it's a very woo-woo in the real world thing you just said about like, I've grounded myself 5 times. You didn't even know it, you know, because I'm just in my regular world incorporating these practices. They're become second nature. So one of the things we like to ask our guests is how you define what is woo-woo, because I think people define it very differently. And so we're always curious, like, how do you define it?
Wow. For me, it would take a lot for me to think something's woo-woo.
Yeah.
You know, I've been talking to beings that nobody can see for whole life.
Right.
So when I hear the word woo-woo, I kind of think of like gypsy with the crystal ball, and, you know, that sort of thing. And what's important to me, especially with the gifts that I have, right? Because I tell people what I do, and most people don't expect it because I look like this. And typically, I don't have 100. You guys caught me after work. I had 3 clients this morning. But typically, I'm not walking around with my arms full of crystals. I put them in other very discreet places because I believe in them as protection. But it doesn't have to, you know. I'm clairvoyant. I rely on them every single day. They are my entire practice. I'm here to tell you I could not practice without them. But if I was walking down the street, I don't think anybody would assume that. So it's sort of like normalizing the idea that this energy exists.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can interact with it as much as we want to or don't want to. You know, my husband's NYPD, he has no desire to interact. You know, he's like, that's nice, honey, just, you know, and that's okay too. You know, but he still appreciates what I do. He still appreciates the feeling of Reiki. And that's the other thing. You don't have to believe in all things woo-woo to benefit from Reiki.
Right, exactly.
He just likes to lie down. I say nothing. I give him Reiki, and he feels amazing and just goes on his way. And so that's another thing. Sometimes clients come in, and my guides are like, let's just tone it all down. Like, we're not here.
Yeah.
You know, we're not here for this client.
Because this client's not going to be open to that
You're
part
gonna
of
scare
this.
them.
Yeah.
That would be dysregulating for them.
Right.
So let's leave us out of it.
Yeah. And that's also, you know, the goal of what we're doing as well. Just, you know, sharing, exposing, and letting people decide for themselves where they want to be on the woo spectrum.
Exactly.
If they want to be on it at all.
Exactly.
Right? I'm going to invite somebody on the show, a friend of mine, and we met for coffee, and, you know, she just started talking about woo. And she said, you know, she's someone who would not consider herself woo.
Let's see. Interesting.
But she got a book from, I believe, her sister.
Okay.
And she actually gifted me the book. So I think it's like a whole episode.
Interesting.
In terms of people's first entry
Yes.
into woo, right? It's like your first kiss almost.
It
you know?
is.
And you go, ooh,
It is.
something
Something
happened.
happened.
And
feels
well,
right.
it made me feel, right? It like made me feel a certain way.
Feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the feels, you know?
Yeah.
So many feelings.
And so it was just a neat conversation.
That is. To catch
and-
somebody that, like, just kind of stepping
Yeah.
on to the
Yeah.
spectrum is
Yeah,
kind of-
and it doesn't mean that she's going full in on the
No.
woo,
No.
right? And she's finding
Doesn't
her
have
way.
to.
And, you know, it just made me feel good, right?
Yeah.
Because also that's kind of like what this is all about and
Right.
why we want to talk to people like Kristin.
That's right.
Because someone may hear this, they may book a session with you, and then it's a ripple effect, right? They go out into the world, they're more calm, they're more centered, and therefore they're interacting with people in their community or their world in a much more compassionate and kind way.
People stepping into their own is so powerful.
That's like
That's what changes the
multiple
world. Like,
episodes.
that's what changes the game.
That's
multiple
so many
episodes.
episodes.
Yes.
But that's the goal in this room.
Yeah.
Is understanding, like, no, you thank you for coming to me, and you have the power.
Right.
Right? And
Yeah.
just reintroducing people back to that. I mean, I was raised, talk about anti-woo-woo. I was raised by an attorney. And, you know,
I can relate.
IT sales. Yeah. And so for me, my journey was very like nobody else is talking about their angels. Like, that's weird. I talk to them all day. Like, what's happening, you know? But it so everybody's journey, they kind of tried to dip their big toe into it for my sake, which is beautiful.
Sure.
But even like I got to experience firsthand people, I mean, that generation is not woo-woo.
Right, it totally.
It's just not. But, you know, I think people are slowly, I get clients from that generation
Yeah,
and they're ready.
yeah,
They're like, I've tried everything else. So that's really neat too.
yeah.
That they heard about it from one of the hospitals or a friend or, you know, walking through your store. It's, you know, and
it's just an amazing time, I think, also. You know, we talk about the collective consciousness as well, right? And so, you know, if you follow these topics and what's out there about it, I mean, where are you on that kind of, I don't know, spectrum of, I guess maybe a perspective. Yeah, just in terms, well, you know, and we've spoken about this on other episodes as well, just in terms of, you know, the pandemic, which, okay, so, you know, everybody was talking yesterday about Saturn is now entering Pisces.
Right.
And so it's the ending of a karmic cycle, and it's the beginning of another 2-year cycle, right? And so what we've come out of is very, very not surprising, because we just had this pandemic, right? So it's about kind of being shackled and having to wear these masks, and very restricting, and very aggressive, and now we're shifting out of that.
Right.
And there's much more movement and much more support,
Yes.
and go for the big dreams and do all those things that, you know, you've been wishing and hoping for and maybe actively working on, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, but if you're in energy and you're following the and you're a more conscious, you know, person, we're kind of not surprised that that this is happening, right? And so maybe, I don't know, it's a question that we can talk about. Your parents are part of a generation that, you know, you think of as not woo-woo, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I would agree with you.
Yeah.
But now more people in their generation are seeking these types of modalities, are seeking a deeper connection, are seeking a deeper understanding about who they are, what is the big meaning of everything, why are we here, right? I mean, not to generalize, but it seems to be more and more people of all ages and all generations are seekers.
Yeah.
Are trying to figure it out,
I
right?
completely agree, and I think that just as a collective, right, what we saw during the pandemic, like as an energy healer, what I saw was it didn't matter what side you landed on, you were afraid, right?
Yes.
You were either afraid of the vaccine or really afraid of those who did not get the vaccine. You were, both sides were filled with fear.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting back as an energy healer and I'm like, so we've got a virus and tons of fear. This is gonna go well,
Right.
And anger, right? There was a lot of anger. And so it was sort of like this big swirling pot, but I see these moments as energy contractions. So energy, it's science, right? Contracts before it expands, which is something I tell my clients before I work on them, because you will feel pressure before a big release, and that can be disconcerting because I'm not touching your body. So it's like, what's happening?
Right.
It feels weird. And so when I see things like that in the collective, to me, it's like, oh, the entire world is having a contraction. This is what a contraction looks and feels like. It feels like chaos. It feels terrifying. It feels scary. And it's part of this nice ascension into a much better place.
Right.
But sometimes we have to be very uncomfortable before we're willing to look there.
Right.
And I
it's
think
a collective
so many
shift, like these other shifts that we
Yes.
talk about.
Well, it is truly,
personal
it's a birthing process.
It's a
Like
birthing.
when you're moving to another, kind of level of consciousness, you're birthing to another spot. And so, you're going to have to have the contraction and the pain. And
Yes. And then you literally, the reason why it's so scary is that you, as an ascension happens to a better place, you're literally in an energetic frequency that you have not been in yet.
Exactly.
So it feels very uncomfortable until you acclimate. And then it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I learned a couple of years ago that there are two words in Hebrew for fear. One is yirah and one is pehad, and they're different. One, yirah, is an energy that you've not come in contact with before, so it's a fear of stepping into something bigger, stepping into a new experience, something that's maybe going to expose you to a different level of something, or it's that rising up. And so even in ancient, I always love it when you can like tie it back, right, to a perennial.
That's fantastic.
So yirah is that feeling of like, whoa, but
What's
it feels in your body, it feels exactly the same as pahad, which is the fear of I'm getting chased by a dog, right? Like a real, that real triggering
The feeling
fear.
is fear.
It's the same feeling. It's the same feeling.
And
so you have to learn to differentiate between the two.
Right.
And to come into awareness of, okay, this is a contraction. I'm okay. I'm going to proceed, which is not what you would do
if you're in
the building
danger.
was on fire.
That's right. Yeah, you have to move.
That's contraction.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
then
Yes.
you
Yes.
would leave the building.
That's
Time
right.
to leave the building. But
Yeah.
even somebody last night had a contraction.
Yes, that's right.
So it's a palpable physical feeling.
I thought that was so fascinating when you said that about the energy, contracting before it expands.
I had a woman here the other day that had a tremendous release. She was literally lying there saying, I'm giving birth to trauma. And it was perfect. It was
That's really
the
to just
verbiage
get it
was-
out.
It can be very intense. But I'm like, you know what? Truer words have not been said.
Yeah.
She's doing amazing now, but I just love how she put it.
Yeah,
She's like,
that's
I'm
a great
giving
way
birth
to
to
think
trauma.
about it, even as uncomfortable and painful as that probably was to process.
Right.
Right? Yeah. We have a doggy in the house.
We do.
Everybody,
It is
here's the doggy.
It's the cutest little doggy. It's the cutest doggy. Well, to kind of round out the whole energy thing, the other thing I heard once, and I want to connect this dot because I want people to, sometimes when you're like maybe stepping on the woo spectrum, you kind of hold like science, you know, with a little more authority than energy. But Chuck Yeager was the first person to break the sound barrier. And he said, the thing that you would not expect, but what is true, is that the cockpit shakes the most right before you break through. He said, right when I thought it's all gonna come, this whole thing is coming apart. It's coming apart. I'm not gonna make it. I'm dead, right? He said, all of a sudden, boom, and he broke through.
Wow.
And so I just thought, you know what? That is so true. Like it just, everything shakes the most in your life, and when you're making these big moves right before that ascension that you were talking about.
Yes, and coming
it's
into
real.
awareness of that.
Right.
It makes it. There's a level of comfort there, right?
Yeah.
When you begin to feel this huge amount of discomfort, knowing like, you know what? it's worth it. It's worth it.
I know, but we probably have people listening to this going, why would I want to do that?
Right.
Yeah.
Why would I want to put myself through this discomfort?
Right.
And
how do I know I'm going to break
on the other
through?
side,
It's incredible.
it's incredible. You're just at a different level, energetically, physically, emotionally, mentally.
Peace.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Just peace.
Peace.
And I think the comparison to COVID pandemic times and now, right, is a great sort of example of that. Like it felt scary, it felt constricting, all of these things. And now it's like, okay, we're okay. And guess what? People are working from home now. Companies are respecting life-work balance. And all of these beautiful things have come from it. Which
The Great Reset.
That society
And
needed.
Yeah.
So are we worse off for it having happened? I think people have, like you said, it was a beautiful reset that we all, because people were working 50-hour weeks and, and I'm seeing that come way down. I'm seeing a lot more women, at least my clients coming in and making decisions about their work-life balance and stepping into that. Whereas, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You could not have asked for the things that they're asking for. So that's a beautiful positive of all of it.
Yeah.
And anyway.
It really is.
Yes. Well, Kristin, again, another beautiful conversation.
Really great.
In the
really
woo-woo world. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for asking me.
And to all of our listeners out there, we will link to your socials and to your website. So if you want to reach out to Kristin, your company is Noel Healing. You're located in Pound Ridge, New York. And we encourage you to get in touch, get your energy balanced and
get it grounded
out and get yourself grounded.
Exactly.
Get yourself in yourself.
Exactly.
Yes.
And maybe a great way to end today is, is there a fast takeaway that you could tell everybody who's listening if they're thinking, I could use a little grounding, but I can't get into a session or, life is just not supporting that right now. Do you have any suggestions for what people can do just in their real world?
Yes.
How do you start to ground your energy and
I'll
do
give
that?
2 big ones that I do every single day.
Right.
The first one is it's very simple. So I won't even talk chakras because not everyone's into that either.
Oh, we talk chakras.
But
It's okay.
Well, we do.
Well, I
but
know.
not everybody
I know.
does.
On their daily.
So let's talk. I'll just say the belly tends to be sort of our powerhouse of energy. And we can just sort of imagine it like a ball, like a nice warm ball rotating. And then imagine it flowing down our legs, through our feet, into the earth, making roots into the earth. And so what this does is the earth's frequency, and all of this sounds woo-woo, but it's a beautiful way to ground, is very, very relaxing, and we can engage it whenever we want. So it's relaxing in and of itself, but the way I use it and the way I suggest people use it is when you're going throughout your day and say you do see something that's triggering or upsetting, you send it down to the ground. Just like lightning must always ground itself, the earth can accept our excess energy. So we can use it to support us in that way. And you can do it anytime. Like you can do it as you sit here, you can do it as you talk to people once you get really good at it. So it's a really simple way to ground your energy. The other thing which I recommend to almost every anxious client, but also anyone during this season of spring when all the energy is moving up, is simply soaking your feet in warm water and Epsom salts. It's a great way just to pull that energy back down where it belongs so that everything isn't all up here and we start to feel really out of sorts. So those are 2 really, really easy ways.
Great tips.
Great grounding tips. We appreciate it. And thanks again for having us here.
Thank you,
in the
guys.
conversation.
Thank you. Until next time.
We'll see you then.